Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I am speaking with author Christina Mcdonald, and we are talking about her brand new book. She has it right there. She's going to hold it up for us, called The Night Olivia Fell.
You get
Oh my God. Christina, when we had first set up this interview and I was like, can I get a copy from you? And you're like, I don't have any. And I'm like, oh my God, I know I have. And I went back and no kidding. I bought this as soon as I could get it.
Oh, thank
Okay.
you.
And I just didn't remember. I have tons of books, but I was like, I try not to buy anything that I don't want to read. And I was like, see, I knew that I wanted to read this book. And oh my gosh, I love this book so much.
I'm so honored. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Is this your debut novel?
This is my very first novel. I've written other books. They were all kind of put into a drawer and they weren't sold. But this is my first actual real published book. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I looked at it and I'm like, is this really, like, is this possibly her first novel? Like, I think it's crazy, but I want to tell everybody out there, because I never look at Amazon things until I'm ready to talk to you. And I can't stand when people don't like cross genres. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this should be under YA. I don't have a problem with that. Make it a YA novel too. Like both. Like I think it does fit both categories. What do you think?
Yeah. A little bit, definitely, because one of the protagonists, she's a teenager. So, yeah, there's definitely that kind of crossover. When I originally wrote the novel, it was very much for adults.
Right.
But because one of the protagonists, when I started developing the story and developing the characters, one of the protagonists ended up being a teenager, and I was like, well, yes, it did. Her voice does sound like a teenager because she is.
Absolutely, which is hard.
Yeah.
To me, that's hard to do because teenagers change so much these days, like every 6
Yeah.
months.
It was different for me, and I definitely had to go back a number of times and go, no, would a teenager say this? Because my nieces and nephews are small and my kids are small, and it's been a long time since I was a teenager.
Exactly.
So it was very much like I had to really think about it. Like, what would I have said when I was 16, or what would a 16-year-old say, or a 17-year-old say now? Would they, how would they phrase this? So I definitely had to go back and tweak it a few times just to get the voice right.
Absolutely. And their social media right. Because it's like between Twitter and then Snapchat and Facebook, it's always...
I think Snapchat.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and that's just, now, I have teenagers and they're always on Snapchat and I'm not, because I don't get it. So.
I'm not either. So I really had to research, what do teenagers use? What social media do they use and how do they use it? And really kind of talk to people and just see and look on forums what their sort of terminology is.
Right. Without getting too weird that older people aren't going to understand, so that everybody gets it. But I thought you did a great job with her.
Thank you.
Okay, you start at the beginning. I don't do any spoilers, so that's why I'm like, okay, you start the book off with Olivia falling, okay, because we know she falls, right? And but then you go to the first chapter. That's the prologue. The first chapter is Abby finding out that her daughter has fallen. And I have 6 children, okay, and 2 daughters, and it's like, isn't that every mother's nightmare, is getting that phone call?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have small children, and as well, I don't even have to send them out to anywhere with their friends on their own yet. They're not that age yet, but that would just be terrifying to get that phone call, especially in the middle of the night. You know that no call in the middle of the night is a good one,
right?
And have your phone ringing and then, it would be so distressing and just, I think every parent's nightmare is the best way to describe it.
Yeah. And what I loved about Abby is I just connected with her. I've been a single mom throughout the 6 children. And, I just, like, my heart went out to her because everybody was calling her too protective, too hardcore. Yeah. And I was like, but when you're the only parent... that is really difficult.
Yeah. So my mom was a single mom, and I think that's why I really was drawn to writing Abby as a single mom. My mom raised the 3 of us girls, my sisters and me, and my brother, on her own. And I just think that would be so difficult, and there would be a lot more, that responsibility is doubled. You don't have another set of hands to help. So I think that really drew me to writing Abby as a single mother as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And, my children my older children are have children of their own now. And,
Yeah.
they like to come back to me and they're like, well, you did it this way and you were so different. And I was like, I hope you never have to find, like, you have no idea how many nights I stayed awake wondering what to do, what the right thing to do was.
Yeah.
Like,
and now, like, for me, I'm constantly Googling, like, how do you make a toddler not throw a tantrum? Things like that. Yes. What do you do about teething? Google has definitely taught me a lot about parenting. But yeah, I think what we do as parents, we do wonder, are we doing it right? Are we doing it wrong? Are we protective enough or overly protective or not protective enough? Or we're just constantly wondering, and there are no right answers, I think. And that was one of Abby's struggles in the book, is like, did I do this right? Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. And everybody, I suppose, will have their own opinion on that.
Right. Oh my gosh. I stayed up the other night and I couldn't sleep. I read this. I had to find out. Like, I couldn't go to bed. And I know you, as a thriller writer, like, you love to hear that some people can't go to bed, but it was actually true. Okay. I would go, I had it on my phone. Right. And I was listening to the audiobook too, which, okay. So I bought the book. I bought the audiobook. Okay.
Wow.
Because I was busy, and I do like to carry it around with me. I put it on my phone, and then I can do laundry and I can do other things. It kind of frees me up, and I can read faster than I can listen. But if I can't just sit and read, I will listen. And I found so I was listening and reading and going back and forth. But in the middle of the night, I was reading. I would grab my phone. I'm like, okay, one more chapter. Just, maybe I'll find out in this chapter. Of course, we know we're not going to find out in one chapter, but because that's why I stayed up all night. But I found the ending, like, I was thinking about this while I'm eating breakfast this morning. I was like, okay, I wanted it to end a certain way, and we don't talk endings. And I was like, but I think the way you choose, because you could have chosen, you had like 2 ways to go with it, right? Yeah. And I was like, well, I wanted to ask you, maybe the thing is, like, maybe it doesn't always work out the way we want, but it does work out. Like, was that kind of a lesson? I mean, I don't know. Were you thinking of anything when you were ending it? Like, when you were trying to decide, like, which road to go down?
So I wouldn't even say that I chose to go down any particular road. I wrote that scene first. That was the scene that was in my mind. Yeah. That was the first scene that came to my mind when I even thought of the book or the story. So I wrote that scene very first. And then I think that then I went back and I started at the beginning. And I went from the beginning to that point.
Wow.
I don't know why I did it like that.
It blows my mind right now. I'm like, oh my God.
I just happened to have a really vivid scene in my head. And the same with my second book that I'm working on right now. I had a really vivid scene in my head, which I wrote first. And then I went back and wrote that. So I think the story almost developed around that sort of ending scene between with Abby, and I won't give away any spoilers, but I think the scene was very pivotal for the whole rest of the book.
That makes like, now that you say that, I'm like, wow, that just like blows my mind, because now I'm like, okay, so that's crazy. I love that. I love that, because not a lot of people, usually authors are like, well, it took me this way as I was writing, they wrote themselves and, but like to have that moment and then go back and write to that moment. I mean, that's just...
I mean, I do write very linearly, so I do kind of start from page 1 and go, but this scene that I happen to have in my mind, it was very much, towards the end of the book. Whereas with the book 2, the scene that I have is literally the first scene in the book, and that's the one I've envisioned. But it's just a very strong scene between some characters that really stood out in my mind, and I could just see it. And it struck me very emotionally, and I cried when I wrote that scene. It touched me very much. So I think, it was just a very emotive scene for me to write, and then to start from the beginning and write the whole book. It meant a lot to me, and I hope that the other readers connect the same way.
Oh, and I loved your timelines, and I loved, the points of view switch.
Yeah.
Because I was like ready I'm like, okay, let's go back to what happened. Like, what's Olivia thinking? Okay, let's go back to Abby's life. Like, what's she going through? I really loved how I thought it worked out so well all the way to the end. I mean, sometimes people get trapped in those timelines, and then halfway through you're like lost. But those timelines kept me going, like, right to the very end. you know.
Thank you. Yeah. I think you do get to see so much more of the characters when you have two points of view. And I think from the beginning, when I went to write the book, I wanted to do it that way because I like to really get in deep to the character and figure out what their motives are and why they feel the way they feel. And so I knew that I wanted to do that sort of back and forth between the two main characters. But I'm glad you enjoyed the timeline as well. Yeah.
I did. And, you know, I was thinking, what attracted me to this book? I mean, the cover is very cool, but I think it was the title. Because right away you're like, well, what did happen?
Yeah. It's a great title. Actually, my editor suggested it to me. Originally, the book was called Pieces of You. But then it got changed a number of times, and it became The Night Olivia Fell. And when they first said it to me, I was like, oh, I don't know. I mean, to have a name in the title, is that good? But then it just kind of became so natural and like such a great, compelling title. And I just, they definitely got it spot on with this one.
Oh, definitely. Just because I know, like, as a reader, I mean, covers are usually like the first thing and then a title, you know? And this title, I was like, right away, I'm like, what happened? What happened to him? I don't know.
Yeah, you answer that question.
Yeah, let's answer. And you know what? When I went back on Amazon today and I saw that you got blurbs from Kimberly Bell and David Bell. And I call them my Bell, like I've interviewed both of them. And I love their books so much. And David Bell is like one of my favorite writers. Like I'll read anything he writes. And I know he doesn't just give those out. And I was like, oh my gosh, if this is her debut novel and then she gets blurbs from them, like how amazing is that?
Yeah, I feel really honored that all of the authors who blurbed me did. I mean, I think what I'm learning is the author community, they're so generous and so giving, and I feel really honored to be a part of it, and that I've had some really, really fantastic support from these other authors. So yeah, I think it's been fantastic.
I do. I find that, like, especially with him and her, like, their names are around a lot, and I'm always like, how do they write? Like, they are reading and they are helping young authors so much. They spend so much of their time helping young authors and then also writing amazing books themselves.
Yeah. I know. I don't know how they do it. They're fantastic. Hopefully one day I will get into a really good routine and be able to do the same.
Gosh, Christina, you will. Trust me, you'll be right in there with those thriller writers. And, you know, I always think I read a thriller a couple of days before yours, and then I read yours, and then I'm like, okay, I need to come down. I need some nice romantic little book to that I'm not like, oh my god, what happened? Because I like to mix it up, you know. I can't just go strictly thrillers or I'd go crazy.
Some woman's fiction somewhere in there.
So so as the story was unfolding for you, what were you like? Did you outline it, or do you kind of let it, like, what do they call that? Write on your pants?
Pantsing. Plotter or pantser,
or do you really, like, after you said you came up with the ending, but then did you outline it and write it, or did you just kind of just write it?
I just wrote it. I'm not a plotter in any way. I think I just, write a story, whatever's in my head, and I kind of throw it onto my Word document, and then from there I sort of whittle it away like an ice sculpture. And I go, no, the characters need to be more of this or less of this, and this would make more sense. And then I really get in there and I carve out the pieces. And I think that means I have a lot more work than somebody who plots, a lot more edits to do. But I just don't think I don't play chess. I'm not analytical that way. I'm creative. So I just write the story that's in my head and I go from there. I'm trying to become a little bit more like, I have some ideas of like, what do I want my first plot point to be and what do I want the ending to be, and kind of know where I'm going to go. But I definitely don't have any sort of outline and then write to it. And then, no, there's none of that for me.
I couldn't do that either. I'm not a writer, but I don't think that would be me either. But what I always love about a good thriller is, like, I always call it tight. Like, every chapter is tight because it has to get, in order to build the momentum of every chapter, you can't waste words. So so I understand when you say you have to whittle it down, it's because you got to make sure that every word that is being told means something.
Yeah, it means something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a little red flag that might mean something else.
Right. Because when we're reading those chapters, we're looking for clue. Like, if I were to go back and reread it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's right there. It's,
And a lot of that comes through in maybe my second or even third draft, where I look at it and go, I can see the bigger picture and go, all right, so maybe this needs to happen to make them look more like a suspect or less like a suspect. and that all comes out kind of in maybe second or third drafts. But in the first draft, it's just a story that I put up, and it's very, very rough. And there's almost no structure to it. It's just like the story that I've told myself in my head.
Right, exactly. And I love when I can't figure it out halfway through, or when I'm wrong, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
And I love being wrong. Like, we want to be wrong, you know?
Yeah, because we like surprises. And I think that's the beauty of suspense, is that we're like, well, we need the answer, and we're driving towards that. Like, what happened?
Yes, yeah. Oh, well, I am so excited for you. This book is doing so well. I'm seeing it everywhere. I mean, when you said yes, I was like, yay, I get to talk to you. I was so excited. And show us the cover one more time before we go. I'm going to put this up. Yeah, I love that bridge.
Yeah, it's beautiful. They did such a great job.
Well, it looks so eerie, you know, like...
Yeah. Haunting, isn't it? Yeah. The first time I saw it, I was like, you guys got it so right. Just straight away. It was just amazing.
Yeah. Is your next, because you talked about writing your next book, is it also a thriller?
Yeah. So it's the same sort of genre, domestic suspense. And it'll be out next February. So, a year after this one.
Well, you know what? I hope I get to read it early. Just let me, you know where to find me. I can't
wait.
Definitely. I can't wait. I am so excited for you. And I will put all of Christina's links listed below, along with, I have been putting IndieBound links, because everybody's been asking for IndieBound links. And Amazon, so you can go right to Amazon, which I always like that button. So anyway, you let me know, and I will read it early, and we can talk.
I will, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. Have a great day, Christina.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.